It was a crisp Wednesday morning at the towering glass headquarters of Layton Tech, a company as well known for its ruthless business tactics as for its enigmatic CEO, Vanessa Layton. Vanessa was brilliant, commanding, and staggeringly wealthy, a woman who played power games not just in boardrooms, but in board games too. Her newest obsession: chess. Every Wednesday, she challenged a staff member, from executives to interns, to a lunchtime match in the penthouse break room. So far, no one had lasted more than 10 moves. Today, however, Vanessa was feeling especially smug. "I'm getting bored," she said, swirling her espresso as a small crowd gathered. "Let's raise the stakes." She turned to the staff and announced with a sly grin, "Beat me in chess today, and I'll marry you." Gasps erupted. Most thought she was joking. That's when Elijah, the quiet janitor who had been mopping near the vending machine, stepped forward. He didn't say much. Just set his mop aside, walked to the board, and calmly said, "I'll play." The room went silent. Vanessa arched an eyebrow, amused. "You? All right, janitor. Let's see what you've got." She hadn't the faintest idea what was about to hit her. Vanessa crossed her legs and leaned back, oozing confidence as she reset the board. "White or black?" she asked, swirling a knight between her fingers like a poker chip. Elijah looked her square in the eyes. "White." "Bold," she replied with a smirk, gesturing for him to begin. The audience of employees, marketing assistants, junior developers, even a few VPs, huddled around with their phones out, sensing something special. Elijah made his first move, 4, a classic start. Clean, aggressive. Vanessa didn't hesitate. C5. Sicilian defense. She always used it. She believed it separated amateurs from real players. But Elijah? He just smiled. His next few moves were quick, efficient. NF3, D4. NXD4, NC3. Then, boom, BF4. The board was wide open. Vanessa blinked. Something felt wrong. By the fifth move, her face lost its grin. She stared at the pieces, then up at Elijah. He was calm. Too calm. Her rook was trapped. Her king exposed. She hadn't even realized it, but she'd walked straight into a trap that looked intentional. The crowd was murmuring now. Someone whispered, "Wait, is he about to mate her?" Vanessa sat forward, finally taking it seriously. And then he moved again, QD6, Vanessa's eyes widened. She couldn't move. Checkmate in 5. The room exploded, the room froze. Vanessa's perfectly manicured hand hovered over the board, paralyzed in disbelief. The queen sat boldly on D6, her king cornered with no escape. 5 moves. That was all it took. Someone in the back dropped their coffee. "Wait, that's checkmate," a marketing intern gasped. "It's over," muttered one of the junior analysts, zooming in on his phone screen. "That's a known blitz trap, but only grandmasters see it that fast." Vanessa slowly leaned back in her chair. Her smirk was gone. Her face had turned to stone, unreadable, but clearly shaken. No one had ever beaten her. Not even the CFO's son, who played semi-pro. Elijah didn't gloat. He didn't smirk or laugh. He simply folded his hands in his lap and waited. Vanessa's voice finally broke through the tension. "Who are you?" Elijah shrugged. "Just the janitor." The room erupted in laughter and disbelief. A few clapped. Others just stood there stunned, replaying the moves in their minds. But Vanessa wasn't laughing. She looked down at the board again, then up at Elijah with a glint in her eye, not of anger, but something more dangerous. Amusement. Intrigue. "I owe you something, don't I?" she said, standing slowly. Her voice was laced with tension, playful, but laced with the sting of a bruised ego. You said it yourself, Elijah replied, rising. Beat you, and you'd marry me. The room howled. Vanessa's eyebrow twitched. Then, she did something no one expected. She extended her hand. Vanessa's hand lingered in the air, palm open, not just a handshake, but a power move. The crowd fell silent again, sensing another twist coming. Elijah looked at her hand. Then he looked her in the eyes. Was it a joke, he asked calmly, or are you a woman of your word? That struck a chord. A visible twitch in her jaw revealed she didn't expect him to call her bluff. Vanessa Layton wasn't used to being held accountable for her taunts, especially by someone most people ignored in the hallway. Her voice dropped low, laced with a challenge. I don't bluff, Elijah. He shook her hand. Firm. No hesitation. The room exploded again. Phones were out. The moment was going viral already. #CEO Checkmate began trending within minutes across employee group chats. But as the laughter and disbelief rippled through the staff, Vanessa leaned in just enough for only Elijah to hear. You've earned something, she whispered, but it won't be that easy. I don't need easy, Elijah said, pulling back. I just need the truth. Her expression flickered, surprised again. She wasn't used to men seeing through her games. Not like this. She turned to the crowd, all eyes on her. I'll speak with him privately, she announced. Everyone, back to work. There were groans and jokes, but no one dared defy her command. Elijah remained where he was. Calm. Steady. While Vanessa circled the chessboard like a lioness re-evaluating her prey. Follow me, she said finally. He did. But what she said behind that closed penthouse door would change everything, not just for him, but for the company itself. The penthouse office was silent as the doors clicked shut behind Elijah. The noise of the stunned staff below faded into nothing. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched behind Vanessa's sleek glass desk, framing the skyline like a throne room. But it was her stare that dominated the room now, piercing, calculating. She walked slowly behind her desk, unbuttoning her blazer like a queen shedding armor. You knew what you were doing, she said flatly. That opening. That trap. You baited me. Elijah didn't flinch. You underestimated me. She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's rare. I don't make that mistake often. A tense beat passed. Then, without warning, Vanessa tossed a file across the desk. It landed neatly in front of him. Elijah opened it. Inside were blueprints. Engineering specs. AI logistics, security protocols, highly sensitive documents. This, Vanessa said, circling to his side, is a project we've been developing in secret. No one outside the top 6 execs knows it exists. Elijah looked up at her. Why are you showing me this? Because, she said, folding her arms, you saw the board before I did. That kind of vision isn't luck. And I don't waste talent. He studied the documents again, sleek, complex, years ahead of anything the public had seen. You want me on this? He asked. I want your mind. I want the way you think, she said. Chess is the real interview. You just aced it. Elijah closed the file slowly. And the marriage part? Vanessa paused. Still interested? He smiled slightly. I think I'd rather work for the truth first. That made her laugh, a genuine one this time. You know what, Elijah, she said, extending her hand again, not for a joke, not for a performance. I think you're exactly what this company needs. Vanessa's handshake this time felt different, not a power play, not a joke. It was real. The kind of deal that shifted tectonic plates inside a company like Layton Tech. But Elijah? He still hadn't blinked. I'll take the job, he said, on one condition. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating already? You said I had vision, he replied. Let me prove it. But not in a lab, not buried in analytics. Then where? Elijah stepped toward the window, looking out over the skyline. I want direct access to executive operations. Strategy. Innovation. I've seen how this company works from the bottom. I want a say in how it evolves. Vanessa was silent for a long moment. No janitor had ever spoken to her like that. But then again, Elijah had never been just a janitor. You're not exactly who you say you are you? She asked softly. Elijah finally turned to her. My degree's in quantum systems. I helped design the adaptive models for Argonne Labs in 19, he said calmly. Then they cut the whole RD team when the market dipped. Why didn't you go back into tech? He looked her dead in the eyes. I wanted to see how companies like yours treat people who clean the floors. Vanessa's breath caught. In that moment, she realized the man in front of her wasn't just brilliant. He was dangerous, not with arrogance or ambition, but with purpose. He had spent months walking through her halls, unseen by the elite. Listening. Watching. Learning. And in 5 chess moves, he changed everything. Vanessa smiled, slowly. Welcome to the top, Elijah. By the next morning, Latent Tech was buzzing, but not about any product launch or quarterly earnings. It was him. Elijah the janitor was now Elijah from strategy, and no one knew how it happened. Some said it was a PR stunt. Others swore they'd seen him walk straight into the executive wing with Vanessa herself. No mop. No uniform. Just a slim black folder tucked under his arm, and that calm, unnerving confidence. In the break room, the marketing team whispered over coffee. I heard he checkmated her in 5 moves. No way. You don't checkmate a CEO. Well, he did. Meanwhile, upstairs in a closed-door session, Elijah stood in front of a digital schematic that had stumped the company's brightest engineers for 6 months. In 15 minutes, he pointed out the bottleneck. In 30, he proposed a fix. No whiteboard monologue. No ego. Just results. Vanessa sat at the head of the table, watching her executives shift uncomfortably. Some were clearly threatened. Others intrigued. But she already knew, the real game had begun. After the meeting, her CFO cornered her in the hallway. You're promoting a janitor based on a chess game? Vanessa didn't miss a beat. No. I'm promoting the only person in this building who made me feel like I was 5 steps behind. And she meant it. Because Vanessa wasn't just playing to win anymore. She was betting on someone who'd already seen the whole board. Even before she sat down. 3 days later, Elijah walked into the boardroom not as a janitor, not as a guest, but as a full participant. His nameplate read, Elijah Brooks, Strategic Innovation Advisor. The air was thick with tension. Half the executives at the table barely looked up. The others watched him closely, waiting for him to fail. Vanessa called the meeting to order. We're facing an opportunity, or a crisis, depending on how blind we choose to be, she began, pointing to a screen displaying a competitor's sudden leap in market share. This was supposed to be ours, the COO muttered. It still can be, Vanessa replied. But I'm not asking you how to catch up. I'm asking Elijah how to leap past them. All eyes shifted to him. Elijah stood slowly, calm as ever. While you've been chasing upgrades, they've been building ecosystems, he said. You're playing defense. You need to change the game entirely. He tapped his tablet. A new blueprint flashed across the screen, one that showed an interconnected platform that merged user experience, adaptive learning, and predictive AI in a way no one else had pitched. Silence. Then gasps. The CTO leaned forward, frowning. How long have you been developing this? Since my 2nd week on the janitorial staff, Elijah replied. A nervous chuckle rippled around the room. But Vanessa didn't laugh. She was laser-focused. "You want the board to approve this?" the CFO asked. Elijah shook his head. "I don't want their permission. I want their faith." Vanessa leaned back in her chair, nodding slowly. "He's not asking for a seat at the table," she said. "He just proved he already owns it." By the end of the week, word had spread far beyond Layton Tech's glass walls. Tech blogs were buzzing. Who is Elijah Brooks, the janitor who outsmarted a billionaire CEO in 5 moves? Layton Tech's secret weapon didn't come from Harvard, he came from maintenance. And the board? They weren't just listening now, they were calling him. Elijah's proposal for the platform overhaul passed with unanimous approval. Not because the board understood every piece of his vision, but because Vanessa backed him without hesitation. "He's what this company needs to stay ahead," she told them. "And if you can't see that, then maybe you're not playing the right game anymore." But while the public fixated on the Cinderella story of the janitor-turned-strategist, inside the company, the tone was changing. Some executives felt threatened. Elijah had disrupted the hierarchy in days, not months, not years. He walked the halls with the same quiet confidence, nodding at the same security guards who once barely noticed him. The only difference? Now they saluted. Back in the break room, the chessboard that had once been Vanessa's domain now sat unused. Untouched. Until one morning, Elijah saw her standing beside it again. She looked up and smiled. "Still want that rematch?" He chuckled. "You ready to lose in 4? She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Careful. I don't make the same mistake twice." He stepped toward the board. "Neither do I." And just like that, they sat, not as boss and employee. Not as queen and underdog. But as equals. Ready for the next game. The office buzz faded as Elijah and Vanessa sat across from each other once more, the original chessboard between them, polished and untouched since their last match. No audience this time. No phones. No crowd. Just 2 minds, meeting again, this time with respect instead of rivalry. Vanessa moved first. E4. Elijah nodded, amused. E5. The pieces moved with purpose, slower now, more deliberate. This wasn't about victory or humiliation anymore. This was about understanding. Each move revealed more than strategy. It revealed trust. "You knew exactly what you were doing that day, didn't you?" Vanessa said softly, eyes still on the board. "I knew what you needed to see," Elijah replied. "Why me?" He looked up. "Because out of everyone here, you were the only one bold enough to bet everything on a game." Vanessa smirked. "And I lost." "No," Elijah said, sliding his knight forward. "You evolved." They played for nearly 30 minutes, each move tighter than the last. But this time, there was no quick trap. No humiliating 5-move checkmate. It was a stalemate, perfect balance. They both leaned back, smiling. "I guess that means I don't have to marry you," Vanessa joked. Elijah raised an eyebrow. "Did you ever plan to?" She stood and straightened her jacket. "Let's just say, I don't make promises I don't intend to keep." He smiled, rising with her. As they walked out of the room together, past the board, past the old roles, past the old power games, the message was clear: in a world full of kings and queens, the true master was the one who could see the whole board, even while sweeping the floor. Game over. Game changed, weeks passed. Elijah's influence wasn't a spark, it was a fire. Departments once siloed began collaborating. Projects that had stalled for quarters were suddenly ahead of schedule. Employees who had felt invisible now had a voice. And at the top of it all, Vanessa Layton watched. Not with envy, but admiration. She had built the empire. Elijah had taught her how to elevate it. Together, they became an unlikely duo, the visionary CEO and the strategist who used to mop the marble floors beneath her office. But Elijah never asked for titles, bonuses, or recognition. Instead, he proposed something that stunned the entire board, a mentorship initiative, specifically for non-traditional hires. Interns from local communities. Entry-level workers overlooked by traditional systems. "I don't want another me," Elijah said during the launch meeting. "I want hundreds of people like me to get seen before they have to win a chess match to be taken seriously." Vanessa approved it instantly. That week, Elijah's old janitor uniform was encased in glass near the main entrance, beneath a plaque that read, "See beyond the title." Elijah Brooks. The company's culture changed. The industry noticed. Elijah's 5-move checkmate wasn't just a moment, it became a movement. And every Wednesday, the chessboard in the break room returned. But this time, it wasn't about winning. It was about watching each other play. Learning. Growing. And remembering that brilliance isn't always found in corner offices. Sometimes, it pushes a mop. And sometimes, it rewrites the rules. A year later, Layton Tech hosted its first annual Vision Innovation Gala, a black-tie event celebrating the company's transformation. The hall was buzzing with executives, engineers, and reporters eager to catch a glimpse of the minds behind the company's meteoric rise. And at the center of it all, Elijah Brooks. He stood near the back of the ballroom, dressed in a sharp charcoal suit, quietly observing as the CEO herself took the stage. "Vanessa tapped the mic. A year ago, I made a bet," she began, the room instantly falling silent. It was bold. Unconventional. Some would say, reckless. Laughter rippled through the crowd. "I challenged someone to beat me at chess. If he did, I promised something ridiculous. But what I got in return wasn't just a loss, it was perspective." She turned, locking eyes with Elijah. "That man taught me that brilliance doesn't always come from the places we expect. That leadership is not a title, it's a mindset. And that sometimes," she smiled, "you find your sharpest mind holding a broom." Applause erupted. She held up a sleek crystal trophy. "This is the Elijah Brooks Award for Visionary Disruption. And he is its first recipient." Elijah stepped forward, greeted by a standing ovation. Reporters snapped photos. Some execs clapped with genuine admiration, others with grudging respect. But none could deny it now, he had arrived. Later that night, as the ballroom emptied and the music faded, Vanessa and Elijah stood alone beneath the soft lights. "You could have humiliated me that day," she said. "But you didn't. You humbled yourself," he replied. "That's rarer than winning a game." She held up a chess piece, the queen, taken from the gala's center display. "Rematch?" she asked, half smirking. Elijah took it, then pulled a white pawn from his pocket. "I'll take white," he said with a smile. They laughed, not as boss and employee, not even as equals. But as partners. Two minds that saw the board differently. And chose to change the game for good. Checkmate. And a new beginning.